If you've ever wondered what actually goes into a high-end Shopify build, this is the full behind-the-scenes walkthrough of my process. Most designers assume that premium results come from premium visuals, but after years of doing this, I've learned that the key difference is the strategy and the workflow that support those visuals. So in this video, I'm pulling back the curtain on the exact steps I use to deliver high-end results for my Shopify clients, consistently, calmly, and minus the scope creep. Here's what I'll walk you through. How I scope projects so nothing falls through the cracks, how I run my discovery and strategy calls, how I structure my project phases for smooth progress, how I keep communication clean and boundaries respected, and how I create overall just a really buttery, smooth, high-end process from start to finish. I've been building Shopify sites for years now with messy builds, broken timelines, lessons learned the hard way. Once I kind of nailed down this process, everything changed. So by the end of this video, my goal is for you to understand how to run a high-end Shopify project that wows your client, why this process works so well, and how you can personally adapt it to fit your preferred workflow. This is the first fork in the road. Most designers skip it and pay the price later. On discovery calls, most designers jot a few notes here and there when something important pops up, typing it manually and distracting them from the call. But what if the most accurate notes that you could have are ones that you didn't write at all? This part is crucial, but if you don't pair it with what comes next, it kind of falls apart and you miss out. If you've ever forgotten a key detail from a discovery call that affects your pricing or your scope and causes kind of a headache later in your project, this is where it starts. During my discovery calls, I let an AI note taker transcribe the entire call so I can be fully present with my client. Not sponsored by them, but the one I currently use is called Tactic. So once I have this transcript of the entire call, I use it in a few ways. What you can do here is tag key phrases within the transcript, like pain points, objections, wins, and use these in things like homepage copy or a proposal intro letter. You can really glean a lot from what your client is saying to you when they're coming to you on these discovery calls, saying, hey, I have this problem that I want solved. One key caveat here is make sure you're not just copying and pasting straight from ChatGPT, like, hey, write a proposal intro letter for me. You really want to heavily edit it so it is in your own voice, is very personable, comes with your own point of view. Clients have such an AI radar right now and are going to be severely unimpressed if they just think you spat out this proposal for thousands and thousands of dollars using AI. This one habit of having AI transcribed discovery calls changes everything for the better and is going to give such a targeted and personalized project experience for your client. All right, next step. This is where your project either stays profitable or starts leaking time. Designers assume that scope creep comes from clients, but for me, it usually comes from saying yes to the wrong things. Understanding this tidbit changed the mental load of my projects forever. When it comes to Shopify, I have my own internal understanding of things that I always touch, I sometimes touch, and that I never touch when it comes to scope. I naturally always touch the front-end Shopify design, the theme, customizing it, making it beautiful and high converting. I never touch the more business-oriented back-end settings like taxes or POS. Those are much better suited to be set up by your client or someone that truly understands their business structure, their logistical decisions, and things that you really have no business touching as a web designer. And some things that I sometimes touch, depending on the project and the client's budget, are things like app setups, advanced product logic, more back-end settings that tie into the front-end design. My zone of genius is the shopping experience, not the legal and financial advice. This clarity with the client keeps me focused, profitable, and out of the weeds. Having a super clear scope with my client is what prevents every later project stage from turning into damage control. This is the next step that most freelancers rush and is the #1 cause of messy projects. Most project chaos starts even before you kick off, and it is sitting right there in your list of deliverables. So learning how to conquer this skill is going to avoid a lot of sticky situations with future clients. In my project proposals, I super clearly outline timelines and deliverables so both parties know what's expected. Beyond just the clear list of what is included in the project, I also include what clearly isn't included in the project. And this can act as a way of sort of upselling add-on services, things like SEO or image optimization or just tidbits that you don't typically include in your projects but would be happy to. And some things are okay to just not offer at all. You can say, hey, sorry, we don't do that. Here's somebody trusted that can. But by listing explicitly what isn't included in their project, and don't be afraid to be comprehensive here, you mitigate a lot of potential awkward back and forth with your client in the future. With Shopify projects, I also list list every single page that's going to be included in their site build up front. So typical ones are home, about, shop, contact, collection, product, FAQ, policies, blog post, search, error 401, cart. I think that's it. Here's also your opportunity to upsell. Hey, we can build you a landing page or a wholesale page. Listing every little detail about the project is going to get you out of some sticky situations in the future where you feel awkward saying no, but you also want to keep that clear boundary. When deliverables are this specific, the whole project process feels a lot more professional and predictable for both of us. The next one is a silent deal breaker that can make or break your entire build. A Shopify project can only go smoothly if the branding is strong first. So you want to make sure that that is super on lock before you kick off, because sometimes what happens is that clients come to you saying, hey, can you do my site? And they don't realize that you kind of need to do a branding process beforehand to set a visual foundation. In their mind, they wrap branding and website design into one main project and expect you to just get it all done. So what I always do is on our discovery calls, if we're not doing a branding project together first, I always ask them to send through their existing brand guidelines before sending a proposal. This one I still trip up on every once in a while, but I'm getting better at it. Because true story, and this actually happened quite recently, on a discovery call with a client, I said, hey, do you have brand guidelines? Is that all set and good to go? She said, yeah, totally, have brand guidelines. That's all set in stone, good to go. Then come Shopify project time, all I get is a couple of pins with like font combination inspiration and a short paragraph of like, these are the kind of colors I want to go for. AKA she didn't have any branding done and now is expecting me to do it. So lesson learned, no proposals without seeing the brand guidelines first, because you may need to go back to them and say, hey, we actually need to establish this before we can move on to the site. So some things I always check for in their brand guidelines are type hierarchy, their fonts not only defined, but is it defined which one's a heading, how is it going to be used in buttons, making sure that their color palette has enough contrast to meet web accessibility guidelines. And in general, do they have a creative direction for the type of imagery that they're going to be using? When you look at their brand, can you picture the site coming to life? Do you get its essence? If their branding is missing, I obviously offer an entire branding project before the Shopify site. And if their brand is somewhat there but incomplete, I offer a brand prep add-on ahead of the project. That takes what they have and basically applies it to the web. How does it actually come to life? Does it fit all the criteria that we need for it to be a success on web? So catching any branding issues or lack of branding makes sure that the process goes much smoother later on and we have the visual foundation set for the website. This next one is something I've been doing recently that is basically my insurance policy. Very small, but very powerful. So over the years of doing this, I can't believe I didn't implement this quite a bit sooner in my business. And I would say that 95% of the time, clients always come in with a small to medium to large request saying, oh, can we add this page or can we add this app? And it wasn't in the scope originally. Basically all the time something like this pops up. In the past, I would always have to be like, oh, this is out of scope, figure out a little fee to add on to get it done, maybe adjust the timeline a bit, and it was quite the headache. If extra requests like this have eaten your time before, this is the fix. And that is including 2 to 5 flex hours or contingency hours or whatever you might want to call it into the scope of the project. So I bake these extra hours into the proposal and the cost of the project for the inevitable small items that pop up. This keeps things so smooth and so laid back and friendly because you can just be like, oh, hey, yeah, I'll get this done for you. This will come out of your flex hours. Keep a running balance. Stay transparent with the client where you're at on them, and everything just goes so much more smoothly. I also bracket these at a certain time frame for how long they're valid after the project. Typically anywhere from 1 to 6 months, depending on complexity. And in the event that your client doesn't end up using these for scope creep, you can always use them for new work, like creating collateral, creating a new page, updating something as time goes on. And I've never had a client push back on these when they see them in the scope. And again, I wish I implemented them so much sooner because they're making my projects a lot easier. Overall, these flex hours let me be generous with my time without sacrificing profit or boundaries. Okay, now onto the actual project itself. This is where your project gains momentum or loses it. A super important part of this is what happens as soon as you kick off the project. As soon as they sign the contract, pay the invoice, and they're like, we're ready to rumble. What can you do to make sure that your project starts off a success? There's a lot of input and content and information that you need to collect from your client. Now, some old school ways of doing this are Google Doc, Google Form, plain old email. But I have this kind of like secret weapon tool that I feel is so underrated in the industry and I never see anyone talking about it. Not affiliated with them, by the way, but it's called Content Snare. And long story short, it's basically Google Forms on steroids, and it has a lot of features that really smooth out the process with my clients. The interface is a lot more customizable and well suited to them uploading their assets and copy for the website. And it also has handy tools like sending reminders like, hey, your content or your questionnaire is due in a week or in a day. I've been using this for years now, and I think it provides such a high-end and smooth experience for my clients because they like to know that they are sending every little thing that I need from them in their projects, and they can go through it and visually see what's been submitted, what hasn't, and just get a really clear picture for everything that's needed from them. And it's also nice because with those automated reminders that their questionnaire is due soon, that prevents me from feeling like I'm nagging them or having the mental load of, okay, check in with client A, B, and C this day, this day, this day. It really streamlines things, and I've been a huge fan lately. So this foundation that you set with this questionnaire before you jump into your strategy call or designing the site becomes the backbone the entire project hangs on. So your clients completed their questionnaire, and it's time for the next step. This is where the project stops becoming just a website and starts becoming an entire strategy. And this is a part in the project where, as time goes on and you complete more projects, you just keep getting better and better at it, and it's typically my client's favorite part of the entire process. If you want to be seen as an actual partner and not just a pixel pusher, this is where the magic happens. And this is by holding a 60 to 90 minute strategy call before hopping into the design. This is where we go deeper into their goals, audience, products, conversion priorities, and I'm able to pull a lot of things that they didn't think about before. And it's important in these strategy calls to not just be a yes man. You want to basically push back on them a little bit sometimes and question their assumptions. I find that clients really appreciate when you act as the expert and come with a unique perspective that can change the game. And with these calls, I also like to bring 3 insights from their audience or competitors to really set the tone and show that I've done my homework. So after this jam session, that is our strategy calls, clients leave really clear, really excited, and we're on the same path forward when it comes to aligning our goals for the project. Similar to your discovery calls, get that AI note taker fired up and transcribing the call, because like those discovery calls, this is just going to be a wealth of information, and it gives every design decision a reason to exist. Okay, now onto my personal favorite part of my projects. And this is the part that makes everybody think the site cost 2, 3, 4 times as much as it did. Now, what happens a lot as a newbie Shopify designer, you go in, you see the free themes like Dawn, and you see the premium themes that cost $300-$400 but give a lot better look and feel. Most people think that for a premium result you need a premium theme, but if you have the right tools and resources, you don't. If you've ever struggled with the concept of I either need to pay for the theme license myself and eat into my margin versus, or should I have my client pay for this premium theme, but then they're kind of like, why do I need to pay for this fancy theme if I'm hiring a website designer? This is how I've overcome that. I always start with a free theme like Dawn because it gives me a clean, reliable foundation to build my design system on top of. Then I pull from my library of custom coded sections that I've built myself from scratch through dozens of Shopify projects with clients. So I'm able to copy and paste these from my code library to my client's website and add all of these super beautiful, high converting strategic sections within 30 seconds or less. This is the secret sauce to the high-end feel that I give to my client sites that they and their customers notice immediately. And I reuse these sections heavily to speed up my workflow while still achieving a super custom result that even high-end themes can't get you. But overall, my Shopify life just got so much easier once I started consolidating and templifying the custom code that I was rewriting over and over again in each project and keeping them in one home base. That allows me to just run free when it comes to design on Shopify, because as you may be familiar, if you started on something like Squarespace or Showit, and then you tackle your first Shopify project, you have a little bit of an existential crisis when you open that theme editor for the first time and think, why can't I just drag and drop things? If you want access to these type of high-end sections without having to go through the legwork of coding them from scratch, the Section Studio is where I store these exact custom templates that I use in every single one of my projects. And I'll plop the link to this down in the description for you. Shopify themes can be quite limiting, so having a system of sections like this changes the game, reduces your need for a developer, and lets you deliver super custom sites. So this next step is the mindset shift that turns you from a vendor into a trusted partner. And it's the idea that boundaries aren't just saying, no, 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 we can't do that. Rather, they're saying yes, but very intentionally. If you've ever felt too rigid or too accommodating in your projects, here's how you can find some middle ground. Now, typically what happens is when you're in the beginning of your web design career, you're very much yes, yes, yes all the time. You don't want to make a client mad. You're not too confident in your skills and experience. So you kind of let clients walk all over you, and it's almost like a rite of passage. Then as you start getting time and experience under your belt, you kind of swing to the opposite direction and you say, these are my boundaries. I'm not going to give an inch because you'll take a mile, and sorry, that's that. But as time goes on even further, I find that I've gotten good at finding balance where it matters. And a big tip for this is framing boundaries as protecting the outcome, not my personal time. When I say yes to things, I make sure to say why. Oh yes, this is going to really improve your conversion or really streamline things for you in the future. And when I have to say no, I give a path forward, like, hey, this part of the project that you want to add belongs in a future phase. So always keeping things outcome focused like this leads to better relationships and better results. This really makes the project feel high-end for the client and sustainable for me. So this next one factor in your projects is the difference between complete chaos and total clarity. If you're drowning in back and forth novels in your email inbox or requests for, hey, can you hop on a call in 20 minutes from your clients? This is going to help. And basically it's using a tool to record your screen and yourself speaking. I personally use Loom to really proactively send walkthroughs alongside your, hey, take a look at this first draft, or hey, I'm answering your question about how this app works. Basically, anytime it would take you more than 5 minutes to sit down and write an email, it should be a Loom. This makes your project feel really high-end because your client is constantly seeing your face and seeing you explain through your design decisions and next steps. It also eliminates the need for a lot of calls while also keeping that high-touch, high-end, I'm here for you and I'm the expert feel for the project. Things also just translate better when you're able to speak them through rather than try to get all of your thinking and intent down in an email. And I remember the first time I sat down and tried to record a Loom like this, it was so difficult and it felt so weird to be just sitting there speaking to nobody on my computer, but it just takes practice, and once you get used to it, you'll be able to bang them out and save yourself a ton of time. And this type of communication supports every single aspect of the project and really keeps it smooth from start to finish. So you started this video wanting your Shopify projects to be smoother, more profitable, and more high-end. Now you've seen the full system that makes this possible, that keeps your projects calm and your clients impressed. So here's the quick recap. Scope everything super clearly before the project begins. Check that branding on that discovery call, or at least before the proposal. Bake in some flex hours to protect your time and your profit. Focus on getting really good at strategy calls to set an amazing foundation for the project. Find your groove with your communication style to keep the project moving and your client happy. And consider using custom Shopify sections to deliver a really high-end custom result at a low development cost. And all of this loops back to the original problem: projects that feel chaotic, too difficult, or underpriced. This process fixes that because you come to the project with confidence, experience, and the tools that you need to deliver a great result. If you want to put some or all of this into practice, tell me in the comments which part of this are you most excited to implement. Thanks for watching. Now go build something great.